Andre Drummond believes that he is the best rebounder of all time in the NBA and that he is a crucial part to the Philadelphia 76ers this season.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Kayla Santiago, media member alongside the one and only Keith Pompey. As always, thanks for making Sixers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment to get all of your Sixers content. And make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. And the preseason is right around the corner for the Philadelphia 76ers. And a lot of headlines coming from the practice today. Andre Drummond saying he is the best rebounder of all time ever in the NBA. Jared McCain, not just a tick doctor, a really good player for the Philadelphia 76ers, according to head coach Nick Nurse. Not only that, Tyrese Maxey coming into his own as a leader and something the Philadelphia 76ers may really need. Kayla Santiago here, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats, the Philadelphia 76ers G League team. Keith Pompey, of course, writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer, everything about Sixers. So, Keith, we got to start out with Andre Drummond. His headline is saying he's the best rebounder ever in the NBA. Let's start with some stats here. So 12.4 rebounds he's averaged per game throughout his career. 10,000 rebounds overall, and he's the only third current player in the NBA right now that has 10,000 rebounds. He's been fantastic in terms throughout his career. Of course, a little bit on the back end right now. I'm thinking that Andre Drummond is trying to have this confidence in himself because Joel Embiid, he knows, is not going to be able to play every single game. Keith, what's your outtake on that? Is it just a fun media day comment, or do you really think Andre Drummond believes that he's the best of all time?
You know what? I do think that he believes it. I do. I feel like when you look at him and he's talking about, you know, here's the thing, like, let's be real. A lot of these guys, they appreciate history, right? You know, they talk about Wilt Chamberlain, they talk about Moses Malone, they talk about all these other guys. But it's kind of like, you know, a recency bias. And when you look at the game right now, he is the best rebounder in the game right now. You look at his size, he's 6'11". You know, he's a chiseled guy, big brute, right? And he's probably thinking, if I was in the paint with Dennis Rodman, if I was in the paint with Moses Malone, all these other guys, I would grab all the boards, right? So I think that's what he thinks. Now, the thing is, a lot of people think he's crazy for saying that, right? Because they're like, yo, did you know that Wilt Chamberlain averaged 22.9 rebounds through his career? You know, did you know that Moses Malone and Dennis Rodman, all these guys were elite ones? But I honestly think that he believes it. And although I disagree with him, I kind of like can see why he says that, because you have to be that confident to think that you can get every rebound no matter who you're going up against.
And by the way, Wilt Chamberlain finished with over 23,000 rebounds throughout his NBA career. Andre Drummond with 10,000. Once again, he's only the third active player right now to be able to hold that stat. LeBron James being one of them, and DeAndre Jordan too. And I think the biggest thing here that I've taken away from this is Andre Drummond is a player that's going to go out there and demand the paint. And when you look at the plus minus when Joel Embiid is not out there, it is really, really, really tough to watch on TV and to see the stats. So when you look at somebody like Andre Drummond, you're not asking him to do too much, Keith. You're asking him to protect the rim, box out, and rebound the ball, being able to get the Sixers quick out in transition if Embiid is not on the floor. I personally love it. Listen, I might think that it's a little bit of a crazy statement, but at the same time, this is the confidence you need, Keith, if your superstar is not going to be able to play games, because Andre Drummond's going to have to take a step up whether he likes it or not.
Exactly. You're exactly right. That's the type of confidence you need. I mean, how many times when we always want people to tell us stuff. I mean, we do. Like, everyone wants someone to be confident, speak with confidence, and say something that could ruffle some feathers, right? That's what we want. And when they do say, like, oh, man, I can't believe he said that, Well, in his mind, he is the best rebounder. You know what I mean? He is. So I'm not mad at him. Now, again, do I agree with him? No. But again, I'm not mad at him, just like you are. I like to see this. And the thing about it is, look, if you read the quote was crazy because he knew what people would say. He said, look, that's why I'm here. I'm the best rebounder to ever play the game. I'm here to do one job, and that's help this team win. Do you want me to say it again? Want to record that? I'm the best rebounder ever. Then he's repeated, ever. So this guy knows what he's saying. He knows that people are going to basically say, you don't know what you're talking about. But at the same time, I love it. You love it. And I think the Sixers fans should love it as well.
Listen, he's just trying to have some real estate in opponents' heads right now. And I think that's what basketball is all about at this point. You know, a little bit of chirping on the floor, giving some headlines. And maybe he's not only taking some of that athleticism from Joel Embiid, but, you know, Joel Embiid loves to go out there and be able to put up his tweets and go at the audience as well. So maybe Andre Drummond saying, well, you know, there hasn't really been any drama. It's been the drama-free Sixers so far in this preseason. Andre Drummond wants to come out here, Keith, and say, listen, I'm the best of all time. I think the thing that I look at that, though, is just hope he proves it. I'm not saying that he needs to average 12-plus rebounds a game, but when you go out there, that plus-minus needs to be a lot better, especially these players are going to get used to seeing him on the floor a little bit more probably than they have, with Joel Embiid not playing as much as what we assume going into the season, trying to stay healthy.
Yeah, you're 100% right. You got to use this. And here's the thing, like, you know, he's using it as motivation, right? You're going to have to, because you're going to have to speak things into existence, right? You said that, so you're going to have to play like that. But just to change it a little bit, I'm going to tell you one thing that I've seen at through the first 2 days of training camp. This guy is knocking down corner threes left and right. Like he's stretching the floor. It looks crazy, right? But you see this big dude, right? And he's like, you know, he's in his 30s. So he's not like one of these new, you know, centers, these stretch centers, whatever, stretch fives. And he's over there. So, you know, he's grabbing rebounds. He's knocking down threes. So I guess he's going to be a 6'11" 3-and-D rebound. So moving forward.
I ain't complaining, and I know that Philly fans are going to be holding up signs and chanting Andre Drummond if that's the case throughout the season. I mean, if you can depend on a guy like that. Now, don't bet on it, people. We're not saying that he's going to be a knockdown three-point shooter, but I think that's a really good evaluation, Keith, to really look at and see that somebody like Andre Drummond, who's been in the league for a while now, is still working on that asset of his game, because you never know when that can come into play. Just how important is that, and how much have you seen of that from these veteran players, maybe during these practices, practicing other things other than just what they're good at to get ready for this season with this current squad?
You know, it's crazy. The good ones, you always see that. The guys who stay in the league a long time, it's kind of like, you know, the off season is when they really get into work. And it's also for a guy like him, Andre Drummond, in his 30s now, who's been in the league for 12 years, it's going to be his 13th, is one of those guys like that. You see them working on that to extend their game, because let's face it, if you don't do it, there's going to be a young guy out there who can, and that young guy out there is going to take your job. So it's kind of like, you know, in any business you're a part of, you have to stay up to date.
That he is as well. You look at Andre Drummond, a player that is looking to take over in terms of that depth. And I've talked to a lot of people about this, Keith. Just let's talk about the depth really quick before we head to break, to be able to see these players that you're looking at, these veterans. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but this team's depth and these vets are really going to make a good case going throughout this season, especially if their starters are a little bit banged up.
Yeah, big time. They need the depth. I mean, and the thing is, and especially in his position, you keep talking about it. You know, Joel Embiid, we don't know how many games he's going to play, and I think he's going to play them more than people think. But at the same time, having a Drummond to take the pressure off is going to help. The same thing with the wing position. They're extremely deep at the wing position, and that's the interchangeable part in today's basketball. So that's a bonus right there.
And we've talked Andre Drummond, but there is another player that's not necessarily a vet, but a rookie we have to touch on. coming up. Jared McCain, no, it's not just the viral TikTok dances. He is gaining a lot of respect from the Sixers coaching staff. But before we get into that, we have to tell you about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. We have live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get things started right at FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com today. And there's so many spreads right now that you can go onto the FanDuel app or go online to bet on, including Thursday Night Football. -1.5 favorites are the Atlanta Falcons over the Buccaneers. Not only that, but we all know how red hot the Minnesota Vikings have been at 4-0. Well, they're only 2.5-point favorites over the New York Jets at the moment. That game in London, early wake-up call. Going to have my sip of coffee at 9:30 a.m. and watch some Sunday morning of football. But also the WNBA, they are in the semifinals right now. And how about some WNBA odds? Since we are in the semis, the Minnesota Lynx are underdogs going into the game Friday night, according to FanDuel's spread. And the Las Vegas Aces in a must-win game, they are 2.5-point favorites on the New York Liberty. Make sure you head over to FanDuel right now to place your bets, America's #1 sportsbook. So back to the Sixers action now, and we have to talk about Jared McCain. Jared McCain has been a really fun player to learn a story about. And I'm not going to lie to you, Keith. When I was watching the NBA draft, he was not the guy that I necessarily thought the Sixers needed to fit in this system. I thought Dalton Knecht would be a better fit. But now, after looking how he played at Duke, he's still a very young guard. I was worried about McCain and Tyrese Maxey both being small guards. But this is the thing. Year after year after year, everybody says that Sixers need some guards when Joel Embiid is double-teamed, triple-teamed, that he can throw out to. McCain can be one of those guys. And you overheard at practice today as well, reporting on it, that Nick Nurse is also high on Jared McCain. Of course they are. That's why the Sixers drafted him. But Nick Nurse really likes the playability that he's shown so far in the preseason. Yeah,
he does. And it's weird. It's like in Summer League, you know, Jared McCain was struggling. Like he was not knocking down shots. He looked like he had a tough time, you know, getting by defenders and everything like that. And when you ask Nick Nurse about him, from that point, he was always saying, hey, I really like what I see from him. I really like it. And today, you know, Jared McCain had a pretty good practice. Like he really did. And Nick was raving over it because the thing is, they we talked about it in the last segment, how deep they are at the wing position with veterans. And these guys were going hard at them. Like they were coming up on them. They were just constantly pounding on him, doing all types of things. And he kept fighting through it. And you know, next thing you know, he's getting off shots. He's doing what he has to do. So, you know what? It's one of those things I'm kind of like with you. And to be honest with you, I still think that Dalton Knecht would have been a better fit for the team for right now, just because, you know, he's a position of need and things like that. And he's more NBA ready. But at the same time, you have to like what McCain's doing. You also have to like that you realize that this is a pick for the future to pair with Maxey. So I have no problems with it. And I do love his intensity and his will to win because this guy's a fighter. He's a fighter.
That he is. And I think that was my biggest problem with it going into draft night, saying, you know, the Sixers have to be in win now mode. You look at Joel Embiid. He says he has 8 more years in the NBA. I think both you and I don't think that's going to happen. I would love to see Joel Embiid play for 8 more years, but his health is already kind of on the decline. We've seen it a lot. This year will really be a big test, saying that he wants to stay healthy for the playoffs. So Jared McCain, yes, he's absolutely a pick for the future. Do I think the Sixers need to worry about the future? Of course I think they do. But also, if you want to win with your superstar, the last superstar Philly had was in 2001 with Allen Iverson. You need some players to win now. But nevertheless, Jared McCain is their pick. When he was at Duke, averaging 14.3 points, 1.9 assists, shot 41% from three-point land and 46% from the field. And Keith, I think my biggest concern with Jared McCain right now is not that he's going to come in, maybe come in off the bench, maybe get some starting time. It's that if Tyrese Maxey goes down or Tyrese Maxey gets a night off, can Jared McCain step up into that spot? Will he be ready? Is he going to be NBA ready if Tyrese Maxey needs a breather, if he's nagging a little bit of injury? Do you think that Nick Nurse and this coaching staff, from what you've heard during this preseason, thinks that he can get there?
Nah, he definitely can't get there right now. I feel like, here's the thing about Jared McCain. Like you look at him, and he's a guy young. I think his biggest role will be, come off a couple of screens, knock down some three-pointers. This is why they have Reggie Jackson. This is why they have Kyle Lowry. These are two veteran-type guys who can play. Right now, Jared is just young. He'll learn the game. He won't, in high school, he was the man, right? At Duke, he was the man. Right now, he's just going to be a young rook who's going to be a situational player who can knock down threes, do some other things. But no, you're not going to see him coming in to lead the offense. Not right now. Maybe in the preseason, maybe in the blowout and fourth quarters, but no, you're not going to see him doing that.
And I think he's a player, last night we were talking about egos between players throughout the NBA. Paul George coming in and saying, okay, I'm fine with being the third guy. I don't have to be the guy, but will that ego take over at any point? We don't really know yet. The season hasn't started yet. We haven't had any of those conversations with those players until that happens. But do you think, Keith, Jared McCain might struggle a little bit knowing that, you come to the Sixers, your dream comes true, but you're not getting as much playing time? Or is Jared McCain that guy, if you've seen in practice, just really loves learning behind somebody like Tyrese Maxey and is ready for his moment when it comes?
I think he's not going to struggle with that. I think there's reality, right? Like you're sitting here, you're a young guy, you're playing on a championship team. It's not like he was drafted by the Spurs or somebody that was struggling. So no, he should be fine with it. I mean, the thing about it is, the one thing that people got to realize is that when Jared McCain was drafted, what did he do? He reached out to a lot of veterans, particularly veterans who didn't play initially, and asked them what are the things he needs to work on, this and that. He's a bright kid. I honestly believe that he'll be fine. I mean, look at it. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a guy that's starting playing for a struggling team getting blowouts, or a guy that's playing behind all-stars? I mean, behind Hall of Famers, behind NBA champions, to where that's going to help you with your career down the road. I feel like he's in a great situation now. If he wants to get Rookie of the Year, if he want to make the all-rookie team, then no, he's in a bad situation. But outside of that, he'll be fine.
And we also are going to talk about coming up, too, that Tyrese Maxey is somebody already that is really taking Jared McCain under his wing, and how Tyrese Maxey is trying to become a leader with this team and everything else. But before we get to that, we do have to tell you about Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is Game Time. Talking about the Sixers, it gets me so excited to be in that atmosphere, to be in those games. And there's nothing better than being in that live atmosphere, especially in Philadelphia. But as you know, as teams get very, very good, tickets get more expensive. It's tough to find very good deals, and that's where Game Time comes in. And although the Sixers aren't in play just yet, they have some really good deals with the NFL. The game I'm looking at now is on the gridiron, Ravens-Commanders Sunday Football on October 13th with the super deal, lower level, row 5, section 5, 138. These tickets are the top 1% based on the value, and Game Time has the best price guaranteed. Download the app today or get your tickets and seats at the best value at gametime.co, not .com. Once again, this is Game Time. Are you ready for Game Time? Because I know that we are here getting ready for the Sixers season. And last but not least, Tyrese Maxey. He's a fan favorite. People love to watch him. He does so many things. And the biggest thing with Tyrese Maxey right now is trying to become that leader, taking Jared McCain and other players out to dinner after practice today, Keith. And that's exactly what you want to see from Tyrese Maxey, because knowing that, once again, I know we've said it multiple times that Joel Embiid might go down. Paul George also isn't the healthiest person ever, so Tyrese is going to have to step up. What do you like seeing from him? What are some things maybe you've heard over practice that Tyrese has said and really pushed those younger athletes to play even better so far?
You know what? The one thing that you talked about, like being a leader, you know, taking guys out to dinner, you're becoming more vocal, like a vocal leader. Like we forget, like, you know, Tyrese is going into his 5th season, NBA season. You know, he's an all-star now. And the thing is, it's like he welcomes it. You know, and the one thing that really stood out to me is when he talked about, you know, Tobias Harris, about how, like, you know, Tobias Harris was his guy. He was the guy who took him under his wing and told him that, look, you got to keep the tradition up. You know, when you become that guy, you got to do that to the young ones. And that's what he's doing. Is also, you know, when we look at Maxey, and I like hearing this from him because, you know, I'll be first to say I didn't think that he was going to be a good point guard. I always thought he was going to be a great player, but I didn't think he would be a good point guard because to me, he's more of a 2 guard trapped in a point guard's body, right? But last year he made that step. You know, he became an all-star, right? So I was wrong about that. But at the same time, now you look at it and it's kind of like, well, what does he have to do? What does he have to work on? Well, now you're regarded as a scoring guard, but can you become a floor general at times? Can you make sure that everyone is in the right position? They're doing this, they're doing that. Now he's like throwing lobs at practice to Kelly Oubre, to Andre Drummond, all these other guys. And to me, that's the next step. And he's taking it. Is he going to be a traditional point guard? No. But what he's going to be is he's going to be vocal. He's going to make sure that everyone is in the right spot. Now, here's something else that I hear about him that I really like. So what the Sixers have is they have, of course, they have a mandatory practice, and then they have an optional practice, right? So typically, a lot of the veteran players don't go to the optional. Tyrese Maxey does. He makes a point to be there. And then when it's the regular practice, he's there before they work out. That's a leader. And then he comes back and he works out with the younger guys. So to me, these are the things that I'm seeing that's making me know that he's the leader of the squad.
And I really like that from Tyrese Maxey. And I love that you touched on just a moment ago as well, Tobias Harris being somebody that really took Tyrese under his wing and helped him out. And I know a lot of Sixers fans don't love Tobias Harris. Do I think he deserved a max contract? Absolutely not. But don't forget when they were in the bubble, Tobias Harris went down, was basically bleeding from his head, and still came out to finish so the Sixers could just get swept. I know a lot of people want to forget about it, but another player I look at too, Keith, is James Harden. I think James Harden was super crucial to Tyrese Maxey's development. Did I like James Harden and how things ended? Absolutely not. I can't stand the guy now. If you're watching the Philadelphia 76ers, you're like, you never want to see James Harden anymore. But, you know, when you look at it now, Keith, I think you almost have to be thankful for those guys in James Harden and Tobias Harris, because without them, maybe Tyrese Maxey doesn't develop as much. And it's not as much saying about his skill set, but just the mental leadership that he's able to have within himself and now bring out to this team, which is going to be crucial. He's the second best guy, the second guy that they're looking at throughout this season, Keith.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, both of those guys, you're right, they were very crucial to his development. I mean, the funny part is that people don't realize this. Like, beforehand, when Harden was here, Harden would get there early and stay late. And guess who was on the floor with him? It was like he wanted to shoot with Maxey. He always did. And it was like one of those things, he was always in his ear. When they played the Clippers, like, you know, guess what happened? Who was in his ear telling him after the game, you're doing great, you're doing this and that. So some people don't like him. You know, of course, they don't like Harden. They don't like Ben Simmons. They don't like whatever. But I'm going to tell you this, Harden was a good guy for Maxey's development, a really good guy. And you think about it, Maxey's from Texas. Harden was playing in Houston. So you know he was big to him back then. And he kind of took him under his wing. And look, I'm going to say this. People have to be elated that Ben Simmons wanted out, because I feel like what that did is that put Maxey on the path to become the person that he was, because who knows what he would be without him. Now maybe he'd be a backup point guard and everybody would be excited. But what happened is when Ben Simmons left, Maxey was forced to start, and then he became better. So you know what? That situation worked out well for the 76ers in regards to Maxey's development.
And Tyrese Maxey is exactly where he needs to be right now, looking at him to take another leap this season. Joel Embiid did go on record, by the way, today and say that Tyrese Maxey was his favorite teammate too. So it's really exciting. And Keith, we've talked about this a little bit, but for you to be able to see this every single day when you go to these practices, just how good is it to see Joel Embiid finally getting a co-star that actually likes his company, that actually gets along with him, and that's really going to pay dividends on the court as well?
Well, I think it's great, and it just didn't start this year. I mean, people forget. I want to say it was maybe not last season, but the season before that, where they were playing the game, and Maxey like passed up a shot, and I think he deferred to Embiid on that, and they had a timeout, and Embiid's like, "Don't you do that again?" Like, you know what I mean? And then everybody jokes because he calls him the franchise, like. Okay, I'm the process, but he's the franchise, right? Stuff like that. So, and I think it's really it's genuine. Now, the one thing that I will say is Maxey's personality. If you don't like Tyrese Maxey, then there's something wrong with you, right? He's that type of guy, right? So, whereas you look at it, you can talk about Embiid and Ben Simmons, right? They both wanted to be the guy, right? Even down to James Harden. James Harden, like, this is Joel Embiid's team. But Harden wanted to be the guy too. Maxey did not want to be the guy. He wanted to defer to Embiid. So I think it's kind of like there was no ulterior motives. Not to say the other ones did. They wanted to be the guy. But so I feel like when you see that, it becomes a true friendship. But also Embiid knows that he can't win without Maxey. That's why he wants him to become this aggressive guy. He also knows, like, let's keep it real. Embiid's in his 30s. Paul George is in his 30s. He knows that Maxey is going to be the guy. Like, in a couple years, they're going to have to rely on him more so than they are now. So it's a beautiful relationship. And like you said, it is good to see it because of that. But, I think it all goes from there wasn't a competition. It was a genuine friendship. And Embiid took him under his wing.
You can't win on your own anymore, and it's not just about a bunch of stars on one team. You need to have guys that can genuinely play together. We saw it last year with the Knicks, what the Celtics have clearly built up, especially that team being out of Boston. But Keith, I want to ask you one thing about Tyrese Maxey here. This is way, way too early predictions, and I want to get your thoughts. Where do you see his ceiling this season? I'm just going to stay with the regular season, not the playoffs. Do you see him as an all-star? Do you see him first-team All-NBA? How well do you think Tyrese Maxey does? Because, once again, his stats are going to go up, especially if Joel Embiid is not playing as much, and Paul George.
They're great questions. I do see him as an all-star, right? I do. But I don't see him as I don't see him. He could make third-team All-NBA. Yeah. I mean, he could. But the problem is when you look at it, you look at the point guards, right? You got, Shai Gilgeous. You have Luka. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys out there, and let's face it, a lot of times it comes down to when it gets to that is a popularity contest. It's like people are looking at your stats and things like that. But as far as an all-star, yeah, I think he's going to be one. I think the thing about Maxey is his scoring could go down. If him, Paul George, and Embiid, all three of them are playing at a high level. But I think that his productivity in fourth quarters are going to go up. And I think that's going to be the difference because especially when Embiid's off the floor. You remember how last year Maxey would get 30 points, but he would score like 25 of them through three quarters. He would struggle a little bit in the fourth just because everyone was able to collapse on him. I don't think teams are going to be able to do that this year. So he's definitely going to be an all-star. I just don't know if he's going to be all NBA, at least not first or second team.
As Joel Embiid says, they don't care about anything with all in front of it. They just want to go to the NBA Finals. It's really early in this season. We'll see what happens. I agree with you. Tyrese Maxey an all-star. I'm excited to see what he can do this year for the Philadelphia 76ers. It's going to be a fun year. We're still in the preseason. We've got some preseason games coming up soon. And then the regular season just short under 3 weeks away from today. It's going to be so much fun. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago. Thank you again for making Locked On Sixers your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find Locked On NBA, where the local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube and where you listen to all of your podcasts.